Michael Goodman here, and I'm here with Chris Biasutti, one of the most experienced security sellers I've met. Chris is now retired. He's heading off to New Zealand to join his wife on his new sailboat, and he agreed to come by today and do a bit of interview and share all the knowledge he's learned over years of learning and selling securities. So Chris, maybe you can just tell us a bit about how you got involved in the business.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Michael. I got involved in the business. I was in the business for about 8 years. So it was 8 years ago, 9 years ago, I got involved in the business. And I guess I originally got involved in the business because I was interested in investing myself. So it was something that I was interested in at the time. I remember I read the book, The Wealthy Barber, when I was like 14 or 15 years old. And I went and talked to my financial advisor at the bank. I remember going in, and I must have been like 16, and I went and talked to the financial advisor at the bank, and I was like, can I invest my money in something? And when she came and told me, yeah, you can put in this and you'll make like 2 or 3% a year, I was like, no, there's got to be a better way to do that. And so I just went from then and started to learn more about the securities business, about private companies, raising money for private companies. And I kind of got into it by trying to do some deals on my own in the real estate environment, and then ended up linking up with people that were doing bigger deals and started in marketing and sales for them. So
what type of securities have you sold?
So I started off, there was a company that I worked for out of Calgary originally, and they were doing a land development. They were running a MIC. And this was back in the day before you actually had to be licensed. So there's a whole bunch of new rules and regulations now that you need to be licensed and work with an EMD and this type of thing. But this was back in what they call the Wild Wild West. And so we were running a MIC, we were doing a land development, we were doing a apartment building conversion. A wide variety. I've worked with debt issuers, I've worked with equity issuers, all private companies. And I remember another quick story just on how I got involved. It's kind of funny, is I was working for these guys. I started working for them in marketing. They hired me. I had worked as a corporate recruiter for a while. And then I wanted to get into the investment business, and these guys hired me in marketing, and they were paying me a salary. And then one day the guy I was working with came to me, he's like, Chris, I really think that you should be in sales. And I was like, well, I don't know if I want to be in sales. And he's like, no, it'll be great. You're going to make commission and all this. And then he told me some of the numbers around, how it worked. And I remember just thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, if I make this decision to leave what I'm doing kind of in marketing and go into this sales position, if I can't sell one deal a month, like I did the math, and if I was going to sell one deal a month, I was going to make twice as much money as I'd made on salary. Mm-hmm. And I was like, if I can't sell one deal a month, I shouldn't be doing this. So I'm like, I might as well give it a try and see what happens. And I think the first month I sold like 5 deals or something. So I had a good month and kind of kept going from there.
Right. So how did you find your prospects to sell to?
It's changed over the years. I think where I'm at now with what I teach people around working with clients is different than where I started 8 years ago. I've done a wide gambit of things, from cold calling prospects. When I first got involved, I made 100 phone calls a day, cold calling people, and I really worked quite hard. We worked trade shows. We went to trade shows and talked to hundreds of people over the course of a weekend, and people would be interested, they'd sign up, and then we'd follow up with them. More recently, I had been working with some people, providing them leads through an online marketing program that I was paying for, and then distributing leads out to people. I wasn't working with any of those clients myself. I was distributing them out to people that I was training, that were working with me. A wide variety of ways. I would say, having gone through it, the best way to build a business in my mind is through referrals. That's where you have the best relationships, and you're introduced to people that are already interested in what you're doing. And it's just a way, in my mind, it's a way more genuine way, I guess, to run the business.
So did you find cold calling work for you on a limited basis?
Yeah, as a way to get started when I was in the business, 100%. I mean, when you start and you're getting involved in something new, you've got to put yourself out there. So cold calling was a way for me of putting myself out there. Was it the most effective way? Maybe, I don't know. Like I only did it for maybe 6 months, and then moved into other ways. I found the absolute best way for me to meet prospective clients, if you will. A lot of my clients I ended up developing, and I still have great relationships with them. So to me, the way I relate to my clients isn't as, this is a client, I'm going to do a deal with them. It's like these guys became my friends. And I have very good clients, and I still have great relationships with a lot of them. So I found the best way to meet those people was to actually go out and meet people. So it wasn't necessarily picking up the phone and cold calling and trying to sell a deal. It was just going out and meeting people and sharing my story, sharing
So
who I was.
where would you go to meet them?
Networking events, like trade shows, industry events. I would go and attend things that I was interested in attending that were related to the business that I was in, and meet other people that were interested in the same thing. So, there's a lot of local kind of investment trade-based shows in Vancouver that we would go and attend. Just go to general networking events.
Did you ever go to things like the home show or the boat show?
Yeah, we did. I did home shows 4 times a year, like for years.
And did you find those were quite successful?
Yes. Yeah. Again, I mean, it's like anything. I think if you put the time in and you meet people and share your story and who you are, you're going to connect with people in some form or fashion. So it's just, ultimately it's about putting yourself out there in some way. I'm not as attached to, this one works, this one doesn't work. I think what it comes down to for me is what works for you. If that makes sense.
Right. So did you get involved with some people that were doing internet marketing?
And
developing a method to do internet marketing?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like I over the years of doing the trade shows, I found that another great way of meeting people is building a social media presence. It's where, again, and same kind of concept of meeting somebody in person and sharing your story. Social media provides you this avenue to share your story to a much larger audience, and they can get a snapshot of who you are, and the business that you're in, or what your business is about, that kind of thing. And so I think, yeah, for me, I recognized that and did get involved with some people to build social media campaigns for myself, and for the businesses that I was working with. So yeah, I think that in my mind, social media, as far as kind of putting yourself out there again, to use that kind of same, getting your message to the world, is a great avenue for it. Fantastic.
What contact management software were you using?
I was using Infusionsoft.
Right. You found that the best one because
it
carried
worked
on the campaigns?
Yeah, it worked at the time. It worked at the time. It had a great way to kind of automate a lot of what was going on with it. It also had a great system as far as being able to look at who was engaged with the media that you were distributing.
Because you could actually see who opened your emails from it.
Yeah, you could see who was engaged. So opens or clicks or whatever, people that were actually engaging with the content that I was creating, you could look at and see that.
So what kind of content would you create?
It's an interesting question. My answer on that has changed from if you would have asked me that question 4 years ago or today. 4 years ago, I probably would have said or what I was doing 4 years ago was a lot of content based on the product. It was based on, this is what the product offers. This is the offering of the product. that works in my mind to a certain extent. It attracts a certain type of client that's looking for a deal. That's all they're really looking for. What I've learned, if you want to be in this business for a long time and you actually care and you're passionate about the business, is while those clients are great to have, I don't know that they're the type of clients you want for the long term, you know. And so my suggestion now is the content that I would be putting out is content that is majority or primarily personal. So it's telling stories about yourself, about why you're in the business. It's about telling stories about what your yourself personally as the person who's like a part of this business, but also telling stories about the business, why the founders are in the business. So to me, that's the type of content that resonates. And I think that that's what people are looking for in businesses these days, is they're looking for relatability. They're looking for a business that they can connect with. They're looking for a person they can connect with. And when you make it all about the product, they don't get that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So that's yeah. I mean, to me, that's the content. I was talking to a guy last night who's in the mortgage business, and we were chatting about, you know, what he wants to do and things, and he's looking at maybe doing a bit of work with me on a consulting basis. And you know, I was talking to him about some personal stuff that he wants to do, and he shared with me this incredible story that, you know, what he really wants to do is, he's from Africa, and he's from a little village in Africa, and he wants to develop a soccer training program to help with the development of youth in Africa. And you know, I'm like, okay, is this something? Have you shared this with any of your clients in the mortgage business? And he's like, no, I haven't shared any of this. And he's like, I haven't shared anything. He's like, I publish a monthly newsletter. I don't publish anything about me personally. And I was like, why not? And he was like, very good question. You know, so I think a lot of people out there don't share that stuff, and when you do, it stands out. You know, people are like, oh, that's something I can connect to, right? You know, if I got an email from this guy that was all about mortgage rates, I'm not going to open it. But if I get an email that's like, hey guys, this is what I want to do. I'm from Africa. I love soccer, and I want to go. And you know, one of the things I'm looking to do is to develop this program for kids in Africa. I'm going to look at it and go, whoa, this is interesting. I want to learn more about this. I didn't even know this guy was from Africa.
Right. So you'd tell personal stories as part of your work.
Yeah. Share who you are. I fundamentally believe now that the businesses that we build are a reflection of who we are. And the more that you're able to share who you are, the more people are connected to your business.
So you are familiar with the Tri-City Mortgage Investment Fund and the monthly income fund. In terms of what you were selling, would you think it would be easier to sell the mortgage fund or some of the real estate deals that you were doing?
I think, well, I mean, I know you. So for me, business comes down to personal relationships. I know you. I know a little bit about your story, a fair bit about your story. And you know, I've talked to friends that I have that are still in the business and said, guys, you should meet Michael Goodman. He's running, he's running a really good shop, and he stands behind what he's doing. So that said, you know, on the personal level, I think what you guys are doing here is really cool. I think that on just say a portfolio level as a client, my personal opinion for my own personal portfolio as well is that an income product should always form a part of somebody's investment strategy. Like any financial advisor you talk to says the same thing. Income generating products are important. So yeah, I mean, based on again our personal relationship, what I know about you, that technical money side of things, I think what you guys are doing is awesome. And based on stuff that I've been involved with in the past, is equal to or in some ways even better than some of the products that I've seen in the past that people are offering. Again, based on yourself, your story, what you guys put behind what you're doing. You know, I mean, one of the things that really stands out for me is that you invest in your own fund. I don't know anybody else in the mortgage business that invests personally in their own fund.
Right.
Not saying there could be guys out there that are doing it. I don't know. I don't know them.
So have you ever done direct mail pieces?
Way long time ago. Yeah, I wouldn't do it. I don't know. There's some people that stand by it that say that it works. It didn't work for me.
What would be, you think, any kind of ratio of closing on the phone versus personal appointments?
That's an interesting question. Tie that back to, again, the personal relationships thing. If you have a solid, strong relationship with somebody, there's guys that were my clients that I could say, hey, talk to a friend of mine still who's in the business today. Actually, this is happening right now. There's a friend of mine who's still in the business. There's a guy that I know, he sort of knows, and I'm not in the business anymore. And I said, and he's like, hey, I'm looking to do something. I said, talk to him. They're doing everything over the phone, because the relationship is there. The trust has been built. As far as building that relationship over the phone, it's possible. There's a lot of clients that I had that weren't in BC that we built a relationship over the phone. But again, it was approaching the relationship from wanting to get to know somebody. And when I was in that area of the country, we'd sit down and grab a coffee and catch up. So the closing aspect of it is, to me, when you have solid relationships with people and they like you and you like them and they like the business that you're in, it's no longer about closing. It's just about presenting an opportunity. The opportunity aligns with them, and they're like, yeah, this is something I'd like to do, or it's something that I wouldn't like to do.
So that brings us to, maybe you want to be looking for people where the opportunity aligns
100%.
with what you're offering, meets their needs.
100%. Yeah.
So if there are people that are semi-retired or wanting to retire, a product that produces income would be important to them.
Yeah, and I think another important piece of that, though, goes back to this kind of thing that I've been talking about around sharing who you are. Because when you put just a product out there, people don't necessarily connect with that. When you share who you are, when you start to share stories about yourself, people that are aligned with who you are and what you're doing will connect with you. The people that aren't won't connect with you. So it's almost like a self-selecting methodology. Like I don't, I've been in this business I was in the business for 8 years. I don't believe anymore in kind of this Glenn Ross sales model of like ABC, always be closing. I don't believe in that anymore. I did at a certain time in my career. I don't anymore. I believe that when you approach the business from sharing who you are and sharing a piece of your story, the people that want to work with you will come and work with you. And the process becomes easier for you and for them because they feel like they have choice. If that makes sense.
So when people would object to what or have reasons why they might not want to purchase, did you try to think about what they were saying and come up with answers for them?
Yeah, to me, the process, the sales process, and again, it's not about, in my mind, this Glenn Ross model of ABC, always be closing, hammer, hammer, hammer. It's about really trying to understand people's stories, understand what they're looking for. And there's a lot of times that I had clients that I would say, this isn't going to work for you. I don't think that you should do this because it's not. I just don't get the sense that it's where you're at. That this is something that's going to be, and I think that you've got to be prepared to say that and to do that. Not from a place of it's like a tactic or a strategy, because it genuinely, the sense that I would get is it genuinely doesn't work for them, right? So to me, the process of sitting down with a client is all about sitting down with them, and if they have an objection, it's trying to understand it. Well, where is this coming from? What is it that maybe they're not clear on or they're not understanding? Because I found that most objections, if you want to, most resistance or most objections to, if I would say, hey, what do you think about this? I didn't look at it as an objection. I looked at it as this person isn't clear on something. There's something they're not clear on, if that makes sense. Because to me, somebody that says, hey, Chris, thanks for sending this over, I'm not interested, fine. I will ask, well, can you tell me a bit more about what it is you're not interested in, just so I know. I'm curious, right? And if they're just like, well, yeah, I don't have any money right now, or I'm not investing in this type of offering. Okay, well, what do you mean about this type of offering? What does that mean to you, this type of offering? And just, and then eventually you're going to drill down to what's actually going on there. Because that Does that make sense?
Try to get, maybe another way, try to get to the bottom of their thinking.
Yeah, to me, it's just about being curious. It's just about being curious. It's somebody tells you something, it's like, okay, well, what does that really mean? If that makes sense, I don't know. And that's what people that I've worked with and trained in a sales capacity, if you will, that's what I always stress is just be curious. Like, that's why we're in the business. That's why I was in the business, is I love people. So I'm just constantly curious and want to know more about the people that I'm working with.
Right. So I know you just bought a very expensive sailboat down in New Zealand. And did you make the money to retire and go sailing? How old are you?
I'm 31.
Did you make the money to retire and go sailing off of your security sales?
I mean, a portion. So I was in the securities business for I've been in and out of the securities business for about 8 or 9 years. 3 years ago, I really kind of left the securities business, and I've worked in it in a consulting capacity. I didn't do any direct sales since, when did I draw my license? It would have been like 2013, the beginning of 2013, end of 2012. I dropped my license, and I haven't done any direct sales. I have consulted with a lot of people that have and trained people to
Well, those
work.
people, you train people, and those people started working for you, right?
Yeah, they were with me, say, in a consulting capacity. Yeah.
But part of their commission money came to you,
They paid me as a consultant to work with them.
right?
Yeah.
So that's also contributed to the income to.
Yeah, no, 100%. Yeah, no, I would say that, I mean, to answer your question, yeah, I mean, I did well when I was working in the business, financially. I did financially well consulting people as well. I mean, I had done well building my business, and so, there's people that I knew that asked me to help them construct an offering, and I put people in place, and that did financially quite well as well. I also did a very similar thing though in the, when I got out of the securities business, I got into working in real estate development itself, not necessarily raising money, but actually working with a developer and marketing and selling investment property. So to me, it's very similar to the securities business. It did that did.
Well,
very
those were
as well.
securities too that you're selling, right?
Oh, they were actual properties, but same.
But they were portions of properties.
Actual properties.
The whole property?
Yeah, we were marketing actual titled properties. So I mean, I did well. Would I say that I made enough money to retire and sail around for the rest of my life? No. I think that, I mean, you and I have had conversations about this. For me, I got to a point in my particular business where it wasn't about the money anymore for me. I had been financially successful in the business, and I was looking to make an impact on people in a different way that wasn't about money anymore for me. It wasn't about money first and foremost. And for me personally, I didn't see a way to do that in the investment sales business.
But you got to the point at 31 in your life that you could at least afford to
Yeah,
buy the boat
sure,
and
that I
leave for a
could
while.
Make that decision,
So
I guess.
it wasn't a failure by any means.
No, I wouldn't say it was not. No, financially, it was quite successful. I mean, I learned a ton being in the business.
Right.
I learned a ton being in the business. So, and again, and I don't, and it's not. I'm not trying to poo-poo the business in any way. Like the business, I have Justin. He's a good buddy of mine, and I think that he is an exemplary model in my mind of how to run a business in the investment sales business. Like I think, and I've told him this, is that, I sold him my book because of that. And I said to him, I said, Justin, like, I have no worries about you having the clients that I had, because I believe you're going to service them 10 times as well as I could have. And that's because I just think that he's, I look at the way that I ran the business and the way that, I was starting to run the business, and he is kind of the model, as in my mind, of if I was to do it all over again, I would probably start where he is.
Right. So you got any tips for people starting out of how they get to the point where they get to the referrals? Because you said before that was your most successful point. I think everybody asks the same question. How do I get to the point where I get the referrals?
It's I mean, in my mind, you just start with it. It's not about, like, you just start you start sharing your story. When you start sharing your story, whatever that story is, some people connect to that, other people don't. The people that connect to it are the people that you want to do business with. And from there, it blossoms.
So it could be cold calling, it could be going to trade shows, it could be going to other places, like, did you join boards of organizations, or did you join clubs or anything like that?
No. I was a part of a club called the Real Estate Investment Network for a long time. But it's really because that was an interest of mine. So my tip or suggestion around it is, and this might sound kind of simple, but it's like, do what you love. Like, go do the things you love, and in the process of doing the things you love, share your story with people, connect with people, get curious about people. That's all it is at the end of the day.
So if you like to sail, you might join a sailing club.
Yeah.
If you like to hike, join a hiking club.
Yeah. And while you're doing those activities, if you're, and I'm assuming that the people that are watching this or in this business are people that actually genuinely like and want to be in this business. I know there's some people that think they genuinely like and want to be in this business, but they shouldn't be in the business. And that will come across. You've got to be in the business for the right reasons. If that makes sense?
Right.
Because you've got to share, and that's where, again, I talk about Justin. That's, to me, where Justin is an exemplary model of, I think, what is a fantastic way to run this business. He genuinely cares about his clients. He's genuinely interested in the products that he's selling. He's generally interested in developing long-term relationships with the issuers that he works with, and really connecting with people.
Do you think long-term relationship with your clients is an important factor?
It's the most important factor. Like, to me, if you're getting involved in this business, and this might, again, I don't know, this may not be what you want to hear on this, but if you're getting involved in this business to make money, you shouldn't be in this business. It's not about making money.
It's about
developing relationships. It's about the people.
And with those relationships comes?
What do you mean?
Success?
Yeah, I mean, it's about, to me, to repeat it again, if you're looking at getting involved in the business for the money, you're in the wrong business. That's why I left the business, because I realized I spent 8 years in this business trying to develop relationships with people. I did, but ultimately I was in the business for the money. It wasn't impacting people in the way I wanted to impact people. So I left, because I wasn't aligned with who I was. I want to impact people in a different way. Justin genuinely cares about his clients. He puts his clients before himself consistently, and to me that's what the business is about. It's about looking after and trying to add value to your clients' lives, whether you get paid or not in the process, because that's, it's about just doing the right thing in the deal, because that's the right thing to do for the client, whether you get a paycheck or you don't get a paycheck. And when you consistently do that, the rewards come.
So we've got a caller on the line from Halifax. Stephen's out there. He was listening to the interview. Maybe he's got another question that he wants to ask. Stephen, can you hear me? Can you open up the line, please?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi. Is there any questions you want to ask Chris?
How about, was there a particular demographic that you found more successful in this type of investments? Like, obviously male is probably, I'm going to guess, but if you can specify into specific, certain type of class of demographic?
Could you repeat the question?
Yeah, so the question you're asking, is there a certain type of demographic that I found it more successful to put myself in front of and market to?
Correct, exactly.
Yes. If you went to go and look at like a cross section of all the clients that I ever got in my life, you would probably find that the bulk of them fell into 40 plus professionals, and that's probably what you would find just off the top of my head without actually going and doing that. That said, I think, to go back to this kind of suggestion around just putting yourself out there and telling your story, what I found is that's actually the people that I tended to attract. So I don't know if that that answers your question. Like to me, it's not about being like, okay, I'm gonna go and market to 40 plus professionals. It's about, hey, this is who I am, and those people were attracted to me.
Gotcha.
You got another question, Stephen?
How about big fish? Did you try to, it might be kind of rhetorical a little bit, but how about like institutional versus like a retail view?
Yeah, I dabbled a little bit at one point in looking towards finding institutional clients. Didn't work for me. Again, I was in the business because I like people. I love people. I don't like dealing with institutions. I never have. So I stayed away from that. That said, I think if you approach the business, and I'll use Justin again as another great example. Justin has some institutional clients, but he didn't get those institutional clients by approaching the institution. He got the institutional clients by developing relationships with people. Because ultimately institutions are made up of people. And when you develop the relationships with the people, sometimes institutions come along with it. Did that answer the question?
There's a certain reality of whether the type of products that are in the exempt market space fit institutions as well.
Yeah, I think they do. I really do. Like Justin's a prime example. He's got some guys that they're not massive institutions. Like these are, small, what I would describe as say small family offices, or people that are managing they're managing money for a family, right? And he it's through relationships. That's all it is.
Right. A family office wouldn't usually be described as an institution, though.
You could call it a small institution, maybe.
Okay. Got another question, Stephen?
How about, I don't know, not to get too nosy, but was there an average size when you did make a sale? I don't have the exact details on, exactly, I'm sure you had a cross sale, a lot of different types of products, but was there an average size, I guess, if that's a fair question?
Yeah, so the question you're asking, is there an average size of investment that I was comfortable working with, or that I worked with, or that I found myself working with? Again, if I can maybe put it back to you, it comes down to what you're comfortable working with. For myself, I came to a place where I was like, okay, the products that I'm working with, the people that I'm working with, I liked to work with people that wanted to invest in amounts of $50,000 and more. Simply because that's, to me it was just that based on the volume we were doing and all this stuff. It wasn't that I would, I never was really in a position where I would turn anybody away who wanted to invest less. I just was like, look, if you're gonna do this, this is the amount most people do, and it's kind of somewhat of a meaningful amount. If that makes sense. But I think maybe to caveat that, what it really comes down to is client suitability at the end of the day. So I can say all I want, yeah, I'd like to work with people that were $50,000, were investing $50,000 or more. The bottom line was, if that amount wasn't suitable for the client, and even if they came to me and said, hey Chris, I want to invest $50,000, I would say no, that doesn't work. I don't think that you should. I have a very good story on that actually. A client came and they had, their net worth wasn't massive, maybe it was like $500,000, and they had like $200,000 in cash or something, and they wanted to invest the $200,000, all of it, in one investment. And I point blank said to them, I said, first of all, guys, is this all the money that you have? And they said, well, no, we might be able to get more here, more there, and I was like, no, I'm not asking you because I want more of your money. I'm asking you because if this is all the money that you have, you should not invest it all in this deal. It's not advisable to do that. I can't advise you because I'm not licensed or anything. I was sitting in this meeting with, the lady that I was training, and I was like, but for me that doesn't sit right for you to invest all this money in the deal. So I think being prepared to have that conversation is really, again, putting the client first. Does that answer the question?
Guaranteed. So it's like in a deal like that, not to get too nosy again, but would you have said, well, like maybe just suitability might be $50,000 or half of that, or just based on, like, would you get into their whole sort of net worth statement kind of thing?
I mean, I'll tell you what I did in that is I wasn't licensed, so I couldn't advise or anything. I was in the meeting
Right.
just because I was there to help the person that I was training. But I basically said, this is what sits for me personally. I wouldn't do it. You guys can make the decision in talking with the person that is here to work with you and the issuer. And they ended up investing whatever they felt comfortable with the issuer.
So did you find that the first investment was kind of the tip of the iceberg and people would get more comfortable with you? So maybe you could talk about that.
Yeah. I mean, and so to kind of elaborate on that, that's why, again, I said I in an ideal world, it would have been like, yeah, everybody invests $50,000. That's great. But taking a relationship approach or putting the client first, it's about the client being comfortable. And to this date, I have not received a complaint from any of the clients that I did that with. Where it's like really put the client first. When you do that and the client is comfortable and they do invest, for me, I would always ask. It's like, is this something you're comfortable doing? I want to make sure you're comfortable with this. If you're not comfortable, let me know. And in the end, it's their choice then. And sometimes they would only invest $5,000 or $10,000, and then that would sit in the deal for a while, and then you get a phone call in 6 months. Hey, Chris, seems like this is going well. Let's meet and go for a coffee. And yeah, I have some more money I'd like to invest. So again, it's about developing the relationship for the long term rather than about
lots of clients came back and back?
The ones that, where I took that relationship approach, yes. Yeah.
Well, Chris, I can't thank you enough for sharing your knowledge with the general public, because people really want to know about this aspect of sales. I mean, they say in business nothing happens till the sale happens. So the part we're doing is really important to making business function. And I also, maybe you could just talk about the advantage of people investing in the exempt market space, or what that offers to our society.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I got involved in the exempt market space again because personally I was looking to do something different with 8-9 years ago, the little money that I had. I thought that there was a different way. I knew there had to be a different way to go about investing my money. So I personally, I believe very strongly in the options that the exempt marketplace provides investors. And especially private business. I think it's a phenomenal tool for private business to raise capital. But ultimately, at the end of the day, what it comes down to me is the people. Like any business, it's if you're going to, as a person who's raising capital, do business with a company in the exempt market, it's get to know the people is my suggestion. Because getting to know the people, connecting with the people, then you can share your story, you can share their story, and really it's about building a community, I guess, at the end of the day, is really what it is, and that's what I was able to build with a couple of the companies that I ended up working with, is we built a community of investors that supported the business, and we would have investor events and they would all show up and people would know each other. So, I don't know, did that answer your question, sort of?
Yeah. Very well. Well, thank you very much for sharing your knowledge. I think people are going to be very appreciative of the fact that you've revealed and told people how you went about the work and how satisfaction brought you. Thanks. So good luck on your sailing voyage.
Thanks.
And we'll see you back here when you run out of money.